Well, David, this is only the beginning, but the Senators Group gets a giant first step here today as they get the nod from the National Capital Commission to negotiate for the redevelopment of LeBreton Flats. Obviously, a huge first step.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And I think what we heard from the people who led the evaluation and made the presentation is that they were impressed really by the doability of the Senators' plan. People really liked the stadium in the middle of it, but surrounded by things that'll knit it back into the fabric of the city. One
of the things that was interesting about the DCDLS bid was the amount of things that were in it. And I think in the end that was a little bit unrealistic. I know you had done some work on the car museum yourself, and that was one of the things that was pointed out that was a negative, and also the sustainability of some of those museums that they put in it.
Yeah, the bid that came second, and we shouldn't say they lost because they're still in it. Things fall through with the Sens. They might end up negotiating their own contract, but. The DCDLS bid threw a whole lot of stuff in. This automotive museum, a whole bunch of different cultural centers, this, that, and the other thing. And the NCC is concerned that they didn't really have long-term plans to make sure all these things would be viable. So then you end up building these buildings, or maybe even not building these buildings, and not knowing what's going to go on those sites. And that's a real problem for a neighborhood that has sat empty for coming up on 50 years now.
I mean, you've been around this long time. To you, what is the biggest feature of the Senators' bid that perhaps put it over the top today anyways?
Well, aside from putting the Senators downtown, which I think a lot of people really have wanted to see for a long time, it's covering the LRT tracks that are running through the site. The LRT, the light rail system, is going to be a really big deal in Ottawa, but it is definitely a barrier. Wherever it's going to go, it's going to come with a trench. And what the Melnyk group said they want to do is cover it over and have shops that back onto it and just make it easily crossable and shield the rest of the site from the impact of that train. And that makes it into one site rather than two that are right next to each other, and that helped them a lot.
Do you think, given the way that these negotiations will go, that we're going to see there's going to be some hurdles along the way, and we're going to see times where this may indeed break down, and that, you know, it's going to be a while before we actually see a shovel in the ground?
Oh, it's going to be a good long time before we see a shovel in the ground. I do think that what this project has going for it is that everybody really wants to see it happen. Yeah. Eugene Melnyk really wants a new arena, and the NCC really wants to get things built on LeBreton Flats. And there are a whole lot of layers of approvals to go through. They've got to figure out how they're going to clean up the contaminated soil, and the province has to sign off on that. There's a lot to do, but everyone wants to see this go ahead, and that is a great start for a project that's this important.
Well, it's only the first step for the Senators, but it's a big step towards getting a downtown arena. For Post Media, I'm Bruce Garrioch with David Reevely.